are saving thousands, even tens of thousands. One call starts the process to stop the demand letters, stop aggressive collection actions, and stop the IRS from targeting you. But don't delay. It's important to act now while you still have options. Optima is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. Optima has already resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Get your life back. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, call Optima now for your free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
An excess of the wrong COVID treatment. More from ABC's Jim Ryan.
When President Trump announced,
I happen to be a believer in hydroxy. I used it.
The state of Oklahoma bought 1.2 million hydroxychloroquine tablets. But with the drug showing little or no effect on severe COVID-19 cases, Oklahoma Attorney General Mike Hunter wants to get rid of it.
I think the very practical approach we've taken is to work with the company, find a purchaser, and recoup the state's money.
About $2 million worth. The negotiations are still going on. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
The nation's airlines are pushing back after reports that the CDC is considering a testing requirement for all travelers on domestic flights. Southwest and JetBlue executives claim that the requirement for COVID testing would be logistically challenging. American Airlines CEO Doug Parker said during an earnings call that testing is unnecessary because domestic flights are safe. The CDC says discussion is ongoing. Travelers entering the U.S. from another country are now required to have a negative test before getting on board their flights. Canada is reportedly considering quarantining travelers in hotels to fight against the new COVID-19 variants. According to the Associated Press, an official with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's office says travelers will have to stay put at their own expense upon arrival to Canada. This is ABC News.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company customizes your renter's insurance, so you only pay for what you need.
Great. As a minimalist, I need simple insurance.
Nice place. No furniture?
Nothing spark joy, except for this fruit bowl.
Well, with Liberty Mutual, you only pay for what you need, so there's that.
I mean, look. So beautiful. So empty again.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
I'm Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
This Snow Country Ski Report is brought to you by Indeed. Are you hiring? You need Indeed. Indeed immediately delivers quality candidates from our resume database when you upgrade your job post. It's that simple. Receive a $75 sponsored job credit on your first post at Indeed.com/credit. Terms and restrictions apply.
We have a powder day to kick off our weekend. By the time all is said and done, some of our nearby resorts will have more than a foot of snow, at least a half a foot for everybody in Bear Mountain and Snow Summit, combining the ski and ride 45-pack powder trails. They are sold out Saturday and Sunday, but the nighttime sessions, which start late in the afternoon, they're still available at Bear Mountain and Snow Summit, and they're going to get plenty of fresh snow, and so will Mountain High. They're on 3 dozen trails. Snow Valley's on 9 slopes. Mammoth already had 7 feet of fresh snow by early Friday, still dumping. Please be sure to keep an eye on road conditions and have chains if you need them as you drive to your powder day at the slopes this weekend. I'm Chuck Devine on KMET 1490 AM.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Julie Talks Money. It's a rainy day here in Southern California and Los Angeles, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the news and in the markets, and I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit on the show today. I think you're going to find it very interesting because, as many of you know, I am a life coach, a financial life coach, and I am not limited to just the people who are over 40 or people who are retiring, although I do talk a lot about that. But, you know, I've also had several guests who help people who are in their 30s invest in different avenues. And I've had stock market experts on the show as well, because there are so many different ways of making money and markets that you need to learn about or that exist out there. And my goal is always to bring you information and experts who can help you in what it is that you want to know. Now, I have clients and I teach classes in courses and at universities, and I've been doing a little bit on Zoom to people who are just starting out, like at 15 years old, the teenagers, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, every life stage, because people want to know different things and need to know different things at different times in their life. My main objectives, both with this radio show and in the coaching, are to help you learn how to make more money, grow your money, keep your money, and then protect it. Because what use is it if you don't have it? Obviously, you're going to struggle. If you do have it, you have to make sure that you take some steps so that you don't lose it. Obviously, we know from this pandemic that we've been into almost a year now, you have to be able to save some and keep it in order to have an emergency fund, which I really, really will always continue to encourage everybody to have. You know, you really need to have, used to be 6 months, and now I'm insisting that 9 months emergency fund in the bank is great. And then the other thing would be to have a way to protect your money. And you can use that with insurance. There's a lot of different vehicles that you can use, but insurance is not the only way. Different things that are safer investments. Talk about that. So at different stages in your life, you're going to need to know different things. And I hope to bring you that information. And today I'm reaching out to the generation known as millennials. That is the group that was born essentially between 81 and 96. So kind of the age group of 24 to 32, 34, maybe 35 now. So that is a group that is really coming into its own in money. And my guest today is going to be talking about that and what it is that he's doing in order to make some money and go through some life changes. As I said, my name is Julie Falen. I'm your host, and I bring the show to you every Friday on KMET, 1490 AM. And it's also available on SoundCloud, a podcast on SoundCloud, as well as through YouTube. I have some of the shows on video and other videos and tidbits as well that talk about different things that are terminology, that are things that have to do with mortgages or that have to do with equity. A lot of it is definition, and also different things like the rule of 72, which some people use generally to talk about their income growth. Another one is compound interest, which some people call the seventh wonder, eighth wonder of the world. And it has been in the past, but not so much right now at 0.5%. But you have to know compound interest. But what is it? What is equity? What is a syndication? What are all these different things? What is a short stock? What is a bond or a commodity? And those kinds of things I also have little bits on YouTube. Should you be self-employed? Should you have an LLC? What are the differences? What are the advantages and the pros and cons? And one of the things about keeping your money also has to do with taxes. So I've had tax experts on, and now that we're getting into tax season, I'm going to be having a couple of other people who are going to be coming up in the next month or so talking about taxes. And what do you do? What's the purpose of you having the money? It's to have experiences, isn't it, mostly? I mean, having money for its own sake is great, but it's for what money can do for you, what it can buy for you. And most of us want to have experiences. Most of us want to travel. That's an experience. What if you want to jump out of an airplane? Oh, that's an experience. What if you want to go study art in Florence, Italy? Absolutely, that's an experience. What if you want to sail around the world on a 30 or 40-day cruise? Well, that too is an experience. And that's what money does for us and gets for us. That is the point of it. So in order to be able to do that, you have to find a way to keep it, grow it, protect it, and obviously take advantage of as many of the tax benefits that you possibly can offered by the government. There is one thing called the Savers Program, and it's offered by the government, and for people who are lower income, which astonishingly in California is considered $40,000 a year or less for people with a family of 4. I think 26,000 or so for those who are 25 and younger. There's a lot of different things that are available, and I want you to check into those. So I like to start also with a couple of tidbits in my shows. And the tidbits basically are little pieces of information that have to do with some things that I find interesting, or with the market, or other things that are just, I think, kind of fun to know. Now, definitely There's been a little frenzy in stock trading and with apps, and I'll be talking about that later. But here's one of the things that is really key and important to all of us. The price of healthcare has been a subject for years and years and years. And believe it or not, it's been almost 10 years since the Affordable Care Act went into place. But in the meantime, even with all the things that George Bush did as president to try and reduce prescription drug costs, they are still very high. Well, Mark Cuban, who many of you might know from Shark Tank, is the owner of the Dallas Mavericks football team and quite the entrepreneur. But he is launching a generic drug company. He's calling it the Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company. And the new company's website basically says it's dedicated to producing low-cost versions of high-cost generic drugs and pledges to provide radical transparency in how we price our drugs. So they're going to be publishing the cost to manufacture, distribute, and market its drugs to pharmacies, hospitals, and add a 15% margin to its wholesale price to basically cover their costs and get a little profit. But everybody is going to get the same price for every drug they make. That will be a huge welcome bit of news for people who have chronic illnesses, people definitely who have diabetes, who are constantly having to get supplies of durable medical equipment or syringes or insulin, something that doesn't stop. And we know that the guy who took over the patent for insulin went to jail because he gouged on price gouging. So definitely keep an eye out for more news on that. Now, in the real estate market in Los Angeles, rents have declined 0.3% over the past month. And in comparison to the same time last year, they are down over 8%. Currently, median rents in Los Angeles stand at $1,511 for a one-bedroom and $1,982 for a two-bedroom. It's the 11th straight months that the city has seen declines in the prices of rent, and a lot of that has to do with a lot of people moving to other states, moving out of the city. Definitely a lot of students who go to the film schools here, who go to music institutes and who go to editing school, a lot of things having to do with the film industry, they definitely have moved out. And so that's one thing that's affected vacancy rates. But that's not the only answer. A lot of it we've talked about is the great migration out of California. And Los Angeles is no different. There are a lot of people moving out of California, moving out of Los Angeles, getting away from the city areas because of the density and the being packed. And that has to do also with coronavirus. Though housing is another thing I'm going into. I believe it's still in a bubble. It's kind of crazy where the prices are. The average house price in Los Angeles now is $832,000. That's the average, not the median, which is a little bit lower, but the average. So, you might have a $275,000 condo, but that's going to be offset by a $3 million house. The ranges are crazy, but the prices just keep going up. And it doesn't make sense. There's no real reason for it to make sense when people are moving out of Los Angeles. There's still low inventory and quick sales. But why? Are people moving in? Are they just like having that fear of missing out, FOMO, as it's called? It's not jobs because there aren't that many jobs here. There are a lot of jobs and they're well-paying jobs, but Los Angeles has been hit just as hard as any other community, maybe even harder, by the coronavirus and people working from home. So that doesn't necessarily make sense either, why the property prices would be going up. Now, to contrast that, the average house price in the United States is $342,000. Now, believe it or not, the top fastest rising metropolitan areas are Detroit, Baltimore, Delray Beach, and even Boise, Idaho, which we've talked about too. Delray Beach and Baltimore and Detroit are up 40% on the pricing. Why is that? I don't know if people are moving there. I don't know if more people want to live there. That's one of those things that's kind of crazy. We're in a crazy market. Over 2,700 more homes sold last year in Los Angeles County than in 2019, which we call last year. So it's not really a big stop from coronavirus, although there are a heck of a lot more realtors using my COVID Essentials Protection Kit that have purchased it. So many of them purchased it. I ran out, but I'm replenishing it. And that's for helping realtors who are getting listings know that they're taking care of their clients, and also for the buyers to know that they're being careful in the house that they're looking at, both because of what might be in the house and also because of what they might track into the house. Coronavirus hopefully is on its way out, but it may be 4, 5, 6 months before we really get a grip on it and a handle on it because of the vaccines that are out there. And I, for one, am just thrilled about that. So I'm going to get pretty much into the show now. One of the things that we talk about with stocks, and most people think about with stocks, is that you buy a stock and it's either going to go up or it's going to go down. The whole purpose of stocks initially was to show your faith in the company, basically saying you wanted to invest in the company and you wanted to be a part owner of that company. And the way that you would do that would be by buying shares in that company. And if the company did well, the share price went up. If there was a dividend attached to it, and you as a shareholder would get a percentage of the profit as a dividend. That's how it started out, and that's how it has been for almost since the inception of the stock market. But in the last 15 or 20 years, we have seen a whole lot of new financial terms, complex derivatives, all kinds of different things that financial wizards have come up with to make more profits for themselves, essentially. And what happens in the market is not necessarily a reflection of what's going on in the companies. Now, a lot of it is very opaque. We don't always know what the hedge funds do or what some other companies do. Even some of the corporations themselves who are buying back their own stock in order to manipulate the stock price, or for the people who are at the heads of the companies and executives to vest their options and then take huge profits. Things have really radically changed in the last several years. And one of the things that has changed, of course, also is what we can do with our cell phone. Now, there are cell phone apps that you can get that will let you trade stocks right on your cell phone if you have an account. And that can be with TD Ameritrade or Fidelity. But a couple of the new ones that are really big and popular are Robinhood. And you might imagine, is kind of what it says, to help small retail investors, instead of having to buy lots of 100 shares, which most people could not afford, but you could actually buy 1 or 2, 5, 10, a fractional amount of 100. Another one is Webull. And both Robinhood and Webull have offered to come on by saying, if you sign up with us, we'll give you a free stock. It might be $2 or $1 worth, but it gets you started on a fractional amount of stock ownership. Stash is another app. It's a little bit different, doesn't do stuff particularly for the stock market, but it does work as an app, and you can actually even have a card for it too. So when you use the card, kind of as a credit card, you get more money into an account, and then you can actually use that account also to buy stocks and positions. Now, what we're seeing right now is a big frenzy kind of in the market, and it's based on a tactic called short selling. Now, generally speaking, when you short sell a stock, you don't own the stock. You are borrowing the stock from somebody else. And for the ease of explanation, I'm going to say you're borrowing the stock at $20 a share, let's say. And then when the stock goes up or goes down, but when it goes up, ideally, actually, you want it to go down, right? And then you buy it back at $3 to cover your position, meaning then you'll be able to pay the person back who you borrowed the stock from. You'll actually, instead of having the $100 shares in your account, you will buy and sell that 100 shares, but it's never really kind of your own money. Now, what we're seeing right now is called a short squeeze. So you sell the stock that you don't own, you borrow the stock, you have to do it in a margin account, and a margin account means that you have to have some kind of stocks or cash account or position within that brokerage in order to borrow against it. And that's what that margin account means. Basically, you're borrowing against it. So if the stock goes down, you buy it in the open market. To cover your short sale, you typically cover by buying it. So it's an interesting strategy, basically buying and selling stocks that you don't own. You have to be approved by a broker to do this trade. But right now, it's not necessarily having to be approved. It's just that you are allowed to do it. So my guest today is somebody who has been selling and buying stocks. He's 29 years old. So he's definitely a millennial. His name is Jason Falen, and full disclosure, he is my nephew. He lives in Kansas City, Missouri area, and he's 29 years old, as I said, and also recently married. Now, Jason is a DJ by trade and a professional pianist. He has been a musician and runs in my family, and he basically started working at department stores at Christmas time, playing piano, and he has done a lot of different events with weddings, decided he loved DJing. He discovered that while he was in college at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, and then quickly became one of the top DJs there and created lots of crowds for different bars. So he basically is doing the gig economy that I've talked so much about, not necessarily a regular straight job, but he is going from one gig to another and making a living doing that. But he's also now become a day trader. So we're going to start this conversation off with Jason and find out what he does with stocks. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
It's actually good afternoon where I'm at, but I'm good.
It is. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to join us today and to talk about your experience. And before we get into everything that's going on with GameStop, I'd like you to tell everybody a little bit about your working life, shall we say. Now, did you start work at a young age? Did you work in high school or college?
Yeah, I started work at a pretty young age, considering, most people start working, a job around like 16. I started at 14. My dad, your brother, was really adamant about me getting a job really early on and start making some money. So I got a job at our local grocery store. And started out by bagging groceries, and as a 14-year-old, they thought I was pretty mature and good at what I did, and they moved me on to being a cashier, which is normally they don't let people be a cashier until they're 16 at least. So I was able to do that, and then just kind of moved up, and that was like my first job, and I worked there for almost like 6 or 7 years, just kind of on the side. It was never like a full-time gig, but even when I went to college after high school, I was able to go back, during the breaks and work there. And so that's pretty much how I, started working, and doing labor.
That's pretty neat. And obviously they have different laws in Kansas that allow you to work under 16 years old.
I remember when I was, when I got hired there, I think the minimum wage at the time in the city was like $5-something, like $5.50. And sorry, getting a call here. Everybody's trying to call me. But the minimum wage was like $5.50 or something like that. I remember they told me that they were going to pay me $6.10 an hour. And I'm like, man, that sounds great. I was like, that sounds awesome. I was really, really happy about that. And now I think we're talking about raising the minimum wage to $15 or something like that. So
that's a big difference.
That was 2006, I believe. So yeah, it's been a long time, but yeah, it's almost doubled compared to.
So let me ask you, when you had that job and then also when you were in college, what did you do with the money, or did your dad teach you or your mom teach you anything to do about budgeting, or did you put it in a bank account?
So my dad had a savings account set up for me. So I think it was like, I think I got to keep 60% of it. And of course, making money at that age, you pretty much spend all the money you make. And then percent went into a savings account, which ended up, being used for college and stuff like that.
So at least he taught you a little bit about saving and being responsible and not having the money.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And then now in college, I know you and I have talked about this, the first time you get there, there's all kinds of people out there giving you credit card offers, and then there's the debit card. Your first experiences with debit cards, was it like real money? Did you know what you had to do with it, or how a debit card actually worked?
Yeah, I knew what a debit card worked. You're definitely exposed to credit cards in college, and I never really got into it because all I've ever heard is stay away from the credit cards, stay away from credit cards. And so I didn't have a credit card until after college, I believe. And unfortunately, my dad never helped me get a credit card and start establishing credit. I kind of wish he would have. If I ever have kids, which I hope to someday, I will. I think it'll be good to try to help establish credit for my child at an early age, because now I realize how important having good credit is. At my age, I'm 29 now, so.
It's really important at any age, and to keep it up. And it's kind of a challenge sometimes. Credit really is kind of like what we say, the coin of the realm. Having good credit now is almost more important in some ways than having cash, because it lets you borrow things. It lets you do more stuff. Obviously get credit cards, but you have to be careful with them. So when was it? Now you started DJing, and I know you've been playing piano for a long time, but when was it you started DJing? 3 years ago, 5 years ago?
It was about 6 or 7 years ago, actually. So I was playing piano professionally in college. I started actually like really late in high school. I started playing at a department store called Von Mar, and then I basically started playing in more of a bar scene and restaurants and doing that kind of sort of thing. And I was able to meet a lot of cool people, and I would dress up and wear a suit and look all nice and fancy. And I would walk out of my piano gig sometimes making $200-300 in cash, just in tips. And that felt pretty good at a young age in college when I was like 18 and 19. And then when I turned 21, we can start going out to the bars. So I went out and checked a local bar and where I lived in Overland Park, and I ran into a radio DJ that I was very familiar with from hearing on the radio all those years. And I pretty much just went up to him, introduced myself, and told him how cool it was that he was a DJ and how I always wanted to do something like that. And he was pretty much told me that, hey, he goes, if you really want to do it, hit me up sometime and I can get you into it. And so I just kind of met the right person at the right time. He kind of helped me get equipment, because the hardest thing is getting the equipment for it, because the equipment is so expensive. Anybody can say they're a DJ, but getting the right stuff and the right equipment is really one of the hardest things, especially at a young age, because it's so expensive. But he helped me use his equipment. He would actually loan me the equipment and then give me enough gigs so I could work it off and pay for it like that. And I was able to kind of build it up over the years and then kind of go off on my own. Now I have my own DJ entertainment production business, and I kind of do that sort of thing. Unfortunately, with the pandemic right now, it's not the most profitable business in the world, but there's still some gigs coming around.
Yeah, the wedding business too. I know that you do that, but that's dropped off significantly too, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Especially now, Kansas City had some, it was pretty open there for a while between like May and November. There was really no more restrictions as far as nightlife goes and events, except for, wearing a mask. And they kind of had some capacity restrictions, but they weren't really enforced very well, I have to say. But now they just extended some curfews. So now there's like there was a 10 o'clock curfew, and then now there's a midnight curfew. So that kind of put the damper on the weddings. So there's really not many weddings happening right now, unfortunately, but there's a lot of bookings. So people are booking weddings for later in the year in 2022. So I'm still able to get those deposits, which is nice.
That is great. So obviously your business was really impacted last year. Now, as I've talked about, you are somebody who's in the gig economy. You don't have a full-time job at a bank or at some other company where you have the regular paycheck and you put in 40 hours a week every week from 9 to 5 or whatever it might be. Do you find yourself to be unique in that among your age group? Or are there a lot of people that you know from college or high school or in your age group that are kind of doing the same thing, whether it's Uber driving, Lyft driving, Uber Eats, whatever it might be, to have money?
So yeah, right now the gig workers and the fellow DJs that I work with, they are doing a lot of things like DoorDash and Uber Eats. They're just anything they can to just make a little bit of scrap, and I decided that I wanted to go to the day trading route. I think it's everybody's dream to be able to work from home and make money in the stock market, nonetheless. But it was something I was always interested in, investing. And I know that you mentioned the Stash app. That was one of the first things that I started using, was that Stash app. You got your Stash card? Yeah, I got mine around there somewhere as well. I like that Stash app because it kind of simplifies investing, and it dumbs it down for the person that doesn't really know what they're doing very much. And it's a good way to just plant a seed. And their Stash card has some pretty good little Stash stock back rewards. So if you take your Stash card and you go to McDonald's, for instance, then you get like 1% back in McDonald's stock. Which who knows 20 years from now that that $2-3 you end up making from your McDonald's trips turns into $100. You just never know. So they have some good little things.
Right. If you'd had a fractional share of Apple for $5 or something, you'd be doing pretty well right now.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about Stash. They do the fractional shares. So, I remember one of the first things I bought was Amazon, and Amazon's like a $3,000 stock, but I knew Amazon was, a great company. This was before the pandemic, and I threw in I think it's like $200, and obviously since the pandemic, that $200, more than doubled because their stock, went crazy over the last year during the pandemic. So,
right.
But yeah,
split.
Shares is great.
Yeah. So you started out with fractional shares and kind of dipping your toe in the water and using the apps. And you said that last March you started really getting more into it. So I understand that you are also trading options and calls, and you have taught yourself, or have you just learned that? How have you gotten into that?
So, yeah, when I first got into the actual day trading sort of thing, I definitely was interested through Stash. I started making money, and then when the market crashed in March, I lost all my gains in my Stash account. I'm like, I kind of wanted to freak out. Like everybody else, their first instinct is, okay, I got to sell, and I just didn't do it. I'm like, I think this is going to come back, and then I started kind of seeing on social media people talking about these amazing buying opportunities. I'm like, yeah, maybe, some of these stocks would be good to buy right now. Like, those big companies, like Apple is great, or like you just mentioned, and then Zoom was a big one that people were talking about at the time, and those were good companies to get into. And so I was like, I'm going to throw a little more money at this. And then I started seeing immediate returns on that, putting money in March, and then watching it kind of start to grow in April. And then I was like, man, maybe I could really be good at this. So I downloaded Robinhood, which is everybody's favorite app right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I downloaded Robinhood, and then I discovered these things called options. And I'm like, what are options? And they're basically a bet whether you're long or short on a stock within a certain period of time. And I was like, this is interesting. I don't have to be able to buy a ton of shares of stock to be able to put myself in a position to make good money. So that was the attraction with options, because they're a cheap way to play the stock market, but they're also very high risk though. And you definitely have to learn that the hard way, especially as a new trader. I mean, you learn the hard way pretty fast. I mean, you're gonna win probably at first, and then you're gonna get a little cocky, and then you're gonna put a little more money in, and then you're gonna realize, whoa, you have the ability to lose your entire investment in your option, even though there's unlimited upside risk or upside potential. The risk is still pretty great what you put in. So it's a very, very difficult thing. Options are very advanced. I definitely don't recommend them to the beginning trader. I definitely recommend starting with shares. But if you can educate yourself and learn how options work, and there's a lot to them, they can be a really beneficial strategy to the stock market.
A lot of people talked about the housing market in 2008 and 9 and 10 when the crash happened. First of it before that, when the prices were running up like they are now, that it was kind of like buying a house or a property to flip was like playing in a casino. A lot of people have also said that being in the stock market pretty much is like being in a casino, and you have the chance of losing all of your money. You also have a chance of making a lot of money, but it's not guaranteed. You kind of are at the mercy of the market. But options give you a little protection on that, right? And puts and calls.
So one thing I like to do, and this is a really, really useful strategy, if you have 100 shares of a stock, you can write your own options that basically can help you collect weekly premium in your stock. Let's say you buy 100 shares of a stock that I hold myself, DraftKings. And if I want to hold this stock and I'm long-term on it, then I can sell what's called a covered call, which allows me to collect premium every single week on that stock while just holding it. All I have to do is have 100 shares. I can sell a covered call and collect premium on that stock every single week. The only risk to doing that is, let's say you want to sell a covered call at a strike price. that's higher than where you purchased it, usually. So let's say I bought DraftKings at $50 and I want to sell a covered call at $60. And that covered call brings me in, let's say, $50 of premium per week. Then I have a $10 move in the stock. That's how much wiggle room I have, basically, to keep my stock and also lock in that premium from the covered call. It's a very confusing advanced strategy, but the only risk is if DraftKings blows through the strike price that you sold. So let's say DraftKings goes from $50 to $65, then you miss out on the $5 of potential profit you could have made had you not written that covered call.
So that really is a pretty sophisticated strategy, definitely. And would you say that somebody has to know or be good at math, or have been good at math in high school or college in order to do this?
I wouldn't say so. No, I really don't think it requires higher math, to be honest with you. It's just your ability to count from 1 to 10. It's not a math thing. It's just really understanding how it all works. There's a lot of different little things. The options have something called theta, which is time decay, basically, and it's how much your contract that you're buying or selling decays every single day, and that's something you have to look at.
And that's something that you're doing now, right? Is looking at something every single day, or every day you are putting yourself in front of the computer and watching the markets as a day trader?
Yeah,
is that right?
I'm currently watching the markets right now. Honestly, I got my iPad right here. Normally I'm over at my trade station, but I like to kind of have an eye on it. I don't know if you can see that because of my green screen, but there's a little stock chart right there. I'm watching the S&P 500 bleed a little bit on this Red Friday, unfortunately, but there's I believe there's a lot of lack of confidence in the market right now because of what the headlines are saying about the war between Wall Street and the retail traders and everything, which I'm sure we'll get to. But yeah, I enjoy watching it and seeing what's happening, and it's definitely it's been educational for me to help understand how our economy works, how money works, and it's exciting and exhilarating, but it can also be a headache at the same time.
That's true. Now, what about Webull? Do you feel the same? So I consider Stash, Webull, and Robinhood to be pretty much the top apps that give you stock, gives you an opportunity to do something and get into the market. And Robinhood, we know, as you alluded to, is going crazy right now with a lot of people, the retail traders like yourself. So first of all, what do you think about Webull versus Robinhood or Stash?
I think Stash is a great way for somebody that is not looking to spend a lot of time with their investments, and they're looking to buy and hold. They don't really know basic charting analysis. They know what companies they like. They know that they want some dividend stocks in their portfolio, and they just want to sit it and forget it. The unfortunate thing about Stash is Stash has something called trading windows. And I think they have 4 to 6 trading windows per day. And when you put your order in, it doesn't execute until that trading window comes around. And let's say you put an order in to buy NIO. NIO is an electric car company. That's a stock that I own myself. But you put an order in to buy NIO, and it happens to be trading at $55 when you put that order in. Well, when the trading window comes around, maybe it's trading at $57, and you might get filled at the $57 price, even though when you put the order in, it was $55. So you don't really know exactly what price you're getting filled at. You're just getting filled on that day, at that time, at that trading window, whenever it happens to come through. So that's the unfortunate thing about Stash, is you're not getting the exact prices that you want. And that's when I was like, okay, I want to get a little more particular with this and lock in the exact prices and sells that I want. Because the same thing goes with the sells on Stash. I have a stock called Virgin Galactic, which is a space tourism company.
Richard Branson.
Yeah, that's Richard Branson's company, yes. And their stock was getting short squeezed this week. And I believe it went somewhere between $40 all the way up to $59. And I'm like, I need to lock in some profits on this at $59. Well, I put the sell order in on my Stash because I had this in my Stash account. And it was at $59 at the time, but it didn't execute until it was $52. So I missed out on like $6 worth of profits in the stock price. So That's the unfortunate thing about Stash. So I like the Robinhood because it's very user-friendly. Robinhood is extremely, extremely user-friendly. It's easy to understand exactly what you're doing. They help you with your option strategies. You know, they ask you, do you want to go long? Do you want to go short? Are you not really sure which direction this is going to go? Because there's option strategies for people that want to bet on a stock to basically trade sideways, or if they're not sure if it's going to go up or down. So you can make a bet both ways and make money that way. But so Webull is really good because it has more advanced charting analysis. Their charts are really good. They have really good in-depth market data. They can show you, all the world markets. You can view all the world markets on Webull, see what's going on internationally. They have different technical indicators that you can put on your charts. Robinhood doesn't have any of that. Robinhood's charts are very, very basic, very simple, which I do like. But as you continue to grow in your trading education, you want that more in-depth, market analysis and charting technical.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Robinhood right now. What's been going on with GameStop? That is huge in the news. As you said, retail traders. When you get into this, we only have about 7 minutes. Let's talk about that, what's going on, and what is actually happening. And the stock is very volatile, and hedge fund, Marvin Capital, I know, has lost over $1 billion because of what traders like yourself are doing, retail traders. So tell us about that, kind of concise what's happening.
Man, I can't seem to figure out GameStop for myself. I always feel like I've traded it during this extremely volatile period for the last, it's been about 3 weeks now since it really started to move. And I seem to always lose money on it, unfortunately. I don't know why. It's one of those stocks that you just don't think should be as high as it is, but it's nobody to judge, what their price is. If there's buyers for a stock at a certain price, then that's the way it should go. Unfortunately, there's something in the market, and I think this is going to be addressed here pretty soon, that the percentage of the float, which is the amount of available shares for GameStop shorted, was over 100%. So 100% of GameStop's float was shorted. Plus, there was actually more than 100%. It was over 100%. And a group of traders on Reddit called Wall Street Bets is the name of the subreddit, pretty much figured out that there was such high short interest in this stock that they could initiate a massive short squeeze if they just got everybody to rally behind this stock. So that's what
basically, when you say there was all these things shorted, there was thousands of dollars in the market where people were selling shares that they didn't own, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then they have to cover that to buy the stock back in order to cover their position and make money. So the Wall Street Bets, they made the stock price go up beyond what these people sold it for?
Correct, yes. And, when a stock starts going against you on a short, your broker will call you within a few days to keep funding your shorts or to cover your shorts. And what happened is it started running so much that people had to cover their shorts. And when people are covering their shorts, that makes the stock price go up even more. So the stock is going up, even though people might not be necessarily buying it up. It's the combination of people buying it up and the shorts covering that makes it go up so much. And it's just kind of gotten away from everybody at this point. And I think now it's trading around $300 per share. It's been extremely volatile. But the big problem with Robinhood is Robinhood works with a company called Citadel. And Citadel pays Robinhood. This is how Robinhood makes their money. Citadel pays Robinhood for their user data so they can see what Robinhood traders are doing. So this is where there's a little fine line, and I think this needs to be addressed, in my opinion, where Citadel can see what Robinhood users are doing. They're paying for that data, but unfortunately, they're also their market maker. And when the options for GameStop are all closing in the money, then it's really confusing how this works, but there's nobody to buy those options back. So Robinhood or Citadel has to pay for them themselves. So this can in theory run a company like Robinhood totally out of business.
Hold that thought. We've got to take a quick little break here.
Okay.
Stay with me. You're listening to Julie Talks Money on KMET 1490 AM, and we're talking with Jason, who's a millennial investor. I'm going to take a quick little break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We're suddenly in the midst of some very tough times. People hurting for cash, don't have many options. My man Saul, the great American, may have a very tangible answer for you if you need cash now. If you are a parent or 70 or older, Saul can get you cash for that too expensive, unwanted life insurance policy, and he can do it fast. Not only will he be able to cash out now, but you or your parent won't have to fork over those crippling high premium payments anymore. You've heard the television spots about knowing you could sell your life insurance policy. Well, why just sell it to one source when you could have multiple chances to cash out and get the most money? Saul will do the whole process remotely, so you don't have to leave the safety of your home or meet with the great American. Contact Saul at Appel Life Settlements, 617-610-1898, or visit his website, appellifesettlements.com. The great American has over 45 years' experience. The consultation is free, no obligations. Call 617-610-1898 now.
We all know that money doesn't grow on trees, but you can grow your wealth every Friday at 10 a.m. with Julie Falen's Julie Talks Money. Julie and her guests have a world of knowledge to help you gain more wealth. Your financial future can be bigger than your past. If you need to build fast cash, long-term wealth, protect what you have, or create a legacy for your family, tune in every Friday at 10 a.m. for Julie Talks Money on KMET 1490 to learn strategies that affect your family and pocketbook. Podcasts are on SoundCloud.
And welcome back to Julie Talks Money. I'm your host, Julie Falen. I'm a financial life coach, and every week I try to bring you different pieces of information and or experts on how to make more money, grow it, keep it, and protect it. And if you would like to talk with me personally, I've got two different things that I can offer. One is for $95, I'll do a financial analysis of your situation, and I guarantee you that I'll find at least 10 times that amount of money that you have or can have quickly, or your money back. Just call 626-460-1188. That's 626-460-1188, and I'll answer the phone even, not an assistant. 626-460-1188. Also, if you might want to learn a little bit more about stocks or investing or real estate or even basic budgeting, by all means, either go to my website or book some time with me, and we'll talk about that. And if you want to be coached, I would be delighted to help you with your financial life. So I'm getting back to my guest now. It's Jason Falen. We're talking about what's going on in the market right now with GameStop and Robinhood and Reddit, because that's all been huge in the news. And GameStop was essentially a company that was struggling, and its share price was only down about $3. So the big boys on Wall Street decided they were going to be doing a little manipulation to try and buy and sell and make money in all these weird, mysterious ways that they do it, some wizardry. But there was a group of people, they call themselves warriors, who got together or read a forum on Reddit called Wall Street Bets, who basically upended that strategy. And we were talking about that. So Jason, go on. You were talking about the capital company that lost lots and lots of money that they had to cover. And the stock was really volatile still.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to make sure I had my information precisely correct. So I looked up. So Citadel, the hedge fund I was talking about, that works with Robinhood and pays Robinhood, they bailed out the hedge fund Melvin Capital, which was the one that pretty much went down because of GameStop going up so much because they were short GameStop. So they weren't just short, they sold shares over and over so much that they had 160% of the entire float short of GameStop. They could only win if they bankrupted the company at that point. So Citadel is the primary market maker for Robinhood. And when you buy stock, if there isn't a seller right away, Citadel acts as the market and sells it later. Same for options. They create contracts as demanded by the market.
The Melvin Capital had to borrow $3 billion to cover their loss.
Yes, and so in return, Citadel pays Robinhood for data feed. Like I said, they pay more to Robinhood on its trades than they pay any other platform. Why? Because the data tells them where the millennials are going before the market knows. And what does that do? It allows Citadel to front run their trades, to buy what they're buying before the millennials can get there. And this is the big problem, it's the hedge funds and institutions versus the retail traders, and retail traders are wanting to level out the playing field a little bit.
And I think that's an admirable thing, because that is kind of going back to what it used to be, and that's what the Consumer Financial Protection Board was supposed to be doing many years ago. So now I think they have targeted a couple of other stocks. Nokia, and a lot of people didn't even know Nokia was still in business. BlackBerry, nobody's got a BlackBerry anymore, but the stock still trades. So what are people doing with those companies and AMC Entertainment?
Well, BlackBerry actually has a catalyst that started to move it, and they're not even into phones anymore. They're actually doing some software stuff, and they're starting to work, I believe. Don't quote me on this. I believe they're starting to do some software for some of the EV companies, and the EV industry right now is exploding.
Electric vehicle.
Yes, electric vehicle, just to be clear. Yep. So that industry is exploding right now, and then with Biden's clean energy progress, so that's kind of a big thing right now as well. But pretty much that was another stock that got really hyped up on Wall Street Bets. BlackBerry was. And then Nokia came around, because then it was like, okay, let's find all these 90s stocks or these really downbeaten stocks. Express was another one that people started talking about. Bed Bath & Beyond was a big one that they started squeezing as well, because all these stocks had one thing in common. They had very high short interest. And those stocks that have short interest, if you start buying them up, then the shorts have to cover, and it creates this short squeeze. And these people that are buying them up can make even more money.
Yeah, definitely with GameStop, there were a lot of people who made once-in-a-lifetime money buying at $3 especially, and now it's at 200 something or 300 today. So I've read stories of even 16, 17-year-old, but certainly millennials, making up to $20,000 on a $2,000 investment, or even $30,000. Is that the goal, what people are trying to do with some of these other stocks and the squeeze?
I had a buddy who made $30,000 in GameStop. And then he panic sold it yesterday when it started crashing, and ended up wiping out all of his gains. So it's a fishy business. You got to be smart. You can't be greedy. And if you're in a position like that, when you're up that much, I'm looking at GameStop now. It's now down to $287 a share. You have to lock in your profits. I would think. And unfortunately for him, he didn't. But I've seen lots of stories of people, they're paying off their student loans, are paying for their parents' surgeries because they're older and they're not as healthy, and they're doing wonderful things with this money that they are making, and it's quite the sight to see for sure.
But even if you had just bought it at $3 or $5 or $10, you could have made a lot of money without having any kind of put or call or option contract, right? Just riding the stock up and then selling it.
Absolutely. The most safe way to trade anything is to buy shares, because options have an expiration date, and you're at risk of losing everything you put into an option. If you buy 100 shares at GameStop at $10, the chances of you losing everything you're putting in, and that company going straight to zero are pretty slim. So
now, there's one thing, anybody that invests in the stock market, the broker dealer, should be covered by the SIPC, so that any cash or any transactions that you made are insured or covered, like the bank does, the FDIC. A lot of people don't know that, so I always encourage them to check that out, because you definitely have to protect your money. And let me ask you personally, what is your goal with day trading? And that's one question. And the second question is, do you consider yourself a sole proprietor, and do you have like a self-employed 401k? And any money's going into any retirement money or an IRA like that?
I have a Roth IRA, so I do contribute to that as much as I can. Unfortunately, this past year, I haven't been able to contribute as much as I would like, but I am glad that I started contributing back in 2019 to that account, and I manage it myself, and I've been doing pretty well. I mean, over the last year, I've been up 100% on that account, which is great. And those
you have a self-directed account. Yeah, good.
The Roth IRAs are great because you don't have to pay taxes on them until later. So And I think there's another one where it's pre-tax, and there's one that's post-tax. And I'm not a tax expert, so I'm not sure how all that works. But yeah, I definitely for my goals with this is definitely long-term investing. I am a long-term investor, but also to generate a livable income by day trading, which is a very hard thing to do, and it takes a long time to get to a point where you're profitable. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of learning and education. It's not something that you're going to come straight into and win right away. So I don't recommend it for anybody to quit their job and just to go straight to day trading, because you won't be able to make a sustainable income doing that. And one thing that I learned, right out of the gate was 90% of people that try to day trade, they fail. So if you know that going in, that 90% of the people fail, then maybe you'll be a little more careful about where you put your money.
Those are all excellent points. And I really appreciate your coming on and talking about your experience and your goals and setting it. And I'm so glad that you actually have a plan and you are putting money aside. And definitely you need to do that, because what a lot of people don't realize is that if you have the short-term capital gains, that's going to be taxed at a higher rate. And even the people who've made $20,000, $30,000, they're probably not putting money aside for the tax stuff. Thanks so much for joining me, Jason, on the show today. I'm going to be talking with you more about this. And I appreciate your caveat or your warning to others, because it's kind of like real estate flipping. People think that it's great when they've gone to one course or seminar, they quit their job, they think this is going to be something great, easy money, be making easy profits really quickly, and it just doesn't happen. Saving money and making money is a long haul. You have to do things for the long term and plan for the long term. And yeah, if you can make money in between, that's great. But what we're doing is investing for the long term. So you can have Apple, like you say, that bought at $10 a share, or $100 right now after the split, and over the course of 10 or 20 years, it's going to be worth $2,000 a share, and your money will grow. And the stock market's great for that. Just don't treat it like a casino. That gets really pretty dangerous. You might as well just go to Vegas and put your money on red every single roll on the roulette wheel. You probably would have the same indication. One of the other things I talked about is that we're doing this index, and Boo the Monkey is one of the ones I'm following on the index, and Boo the Monkey on his stock picks is up 135% this week. So I'm going to leave you with that note. Thank you for tuning in to Julie Talks Money. I hope you'll check out Julie Talks Money every week at Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific time on KMET 1490 AM. Go to my website, julietalksmoney.com, and or call me at 626-460-1188, and we'll help you get your financial life in order and learn more. Thanks again for joining me. Have a great and prosperous week.
The proceeding was a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not